in this section, I'm solving a problem in partial variation. The question is displayed at the beginning of this video. So from the question, the cost of feeding, I represented the cost of feeding with the letter C. Number of students is equals to N. The partial variation relationship is C is equals to A plus BN, where C is the cost of feeding, A and B are constants, and N is the number of students. In the question, this information are provided. So it took $875 to feed 75 students. It took $1,000 to feed 100 students. The question says, what is the cost of feeding 220 students? So this is the problem we are going to solve. We are going to find out what would it cost to feed 220 students of NECO Academy who went on an excursion. So I'm going to wipe this out on the board. The partial variation relationship is C is equal to A plus BN. From the first information provided, N is 75, C is equal to the cost of feeding, which is $875, A plus B, and then the value of N, the number of students, is 75. Can also be written as 75B. So I'm going to call this equation 1. The second information, number of students is 100, cost of feeding is 1,000. I'll call this equation 2. Now, so what I'm going to do in this, what I'm doing right now, I want to solve for the unknown value. I want to solve for the value of the constants, A and B. So these two values are not provided. If I want to calculate for the cost of feeding 220 students, I need to know the value of A and B. So to get the value of A and B, I'm going to apply simultaneous equation to solve for the value of A and B. So I will rewrite these equations as A plus 75B is equal to 875 and A plus 100B is equal to 1,000. So I'll call this equation, let's still represent it with equation 1 and 2. Okay, so I'm going to use the method of elimination to eliminate one of the constants or one of the variables here, so that I can get the value of the other variable. So to do that, I'm going to subtract equation 1 from 2. So I'll subtract equation 2 from equation 1. If I do that, this becomes A minus A plus 75B minus 100B is equal to 875 minus 1,000. So A minus B is same thing as 0. 75B minus 100 is minus 25B. 875 minus 1,000 is minus 125. So the next thing we are going to do is to divide both sides of the equation with 25 so that we can eliminate this 25. Minus 25 rather. So to eliminate 25 and also to eliminate the negative signs. And this becomes, if we divide both sides, by minus 25, this becomes minus 25b all over minus 25 is equal to minus 125 all over minus 25. So minus, we cancel, minus 25 will cancel out minus 25. Minus 20, minus 120, minus 25 divided by minus 125 is equal to 5. Therefore, the value of b is 5. So now I have the value of this constant b. To get the value of a, I will substitute the value of b into any of my equations. So I'm going to choose the first equation. Let me create space by wiping this part of the board. I'll choose the first equation. A plus 75b is equals to 875. I can use any of the equation. I just decided to use the first equation. So the value of b is 5. So therefore this becomes a plus 75 multiplied by 5. This is 25. This is 35. 375 is equal to 875. So I'm looking for this value here, this constant a. So to get this value, I will subtract 375 from both sides of the equation. And the reason why I am subtracting from both sides of the equation is because it is a law in algebra. So whatever you do to one side of the equation, you also do it to the other side of the equation. Just like I did here in this equation, I divided both sides of the equation with minus 25. So whatever you do to one side of the equation, you also do it to the other side of the equation. So to eliminate 375, I will subtract 375 from both sides of the equation. So this becomes a plus 375 minus 375 is equal to 875 minus 375. So this value is equal to 0. Therefore, a is equal to 500. So the value of a is 500. So now we have the value of a equal to 500 and the value of b is equal to 5. Now, we can now solve for the cost of feeding 220 students. Remember I said at the beginning of the video that for us to be able to use this formula to look for the cost of feeding 220 students, we need to look for the value of a and b. In the question, the number of students is 220, and we are asked to look for the cost of feeding 220 students. If we substitute 220 into this equation, a and b is unknown. So that is why I look for the value of a and b. Now I'm going to use the value of a and b to solve for the cost of feeding the 220 students. So the value of a is 5. The value of b is 500. The value of n is 220. Sorry. The value of a is 500. The value of b is 5. So this becomes 5 times 220. So this is 500 plus 5 times 220 is 1,100. And this is the same thing now. 1,100 plus 500 is the same thing as 1,600. Therefore, the cost of feeding 220 students is $1,600.